Um, Kristen is not going to attend. So let's call the meeting to order at 5:01. Larry Dunn, the chair, and we want to start Tom on that far side.
Tom Olson, member.
Giselle Malloy, member.
Ann Schmidt, member.
Ray Rafferty, vice chair.
Michelle Fitzpatrick, secretary.
Dave Prescott, staff.
All right, so let's get into it. So we did the roll call, and then would be the minutes, November 4th minutes. It is in the agenda handout. Any comments or a motion on the minutes?
I have no comments and move we accept the minutes as presented. Second.
All right. So without exception, we'll accept the minutes and move on to the next topic, which is public communications. Is there anyone else out there? I don't.
Sorry, there is. Looks like we have someone as an attendee. If you would like to speak during public communications, can you just give me a thumbs up or a wave or something like that, and I can allow you to talk? It looks like K.E. Kuhn. Chris Kuhn.
Good. All right, well, then we will go along to the next topic, which is, oh man, where'd that go? Oh, there it is. I'm bouncing back and forth on would be the report of chair. That would be me. All right. A bunch of stuff. So I did send a letter to John Reiner after the Tri-Commission meeting, which we'll discuss later in the agenda, which provided an update on the 2035 objectives that we had agreed to in the prior meeting. So you folks have a copy of that. So I don't think there's any new news there. Did send a letter of support to SCARA based upon the direction from our last meeting. That is in the agenda. I did attend the virtual planners meeting on the Mystic River Alliance. They are supposedly providing links to the presentations today. I did not receive them. So when I get those, I will forward them. It was on green infrastructure presentation. Stonington presented their bronze level sustainability input. And the last thing I did was I attended the November 20th Groton Roll at Housing. And I guess one of the takeaways I had from that was that we only have 7% multifamily homes in Groton, which seems a little light, and given the limited space we have, seems like it ought to be rectified in the future, which gets into, I guess, back to the 2035 objectives is what do we want to do and how do we want to get there in terms of increasing housing in the town. That if there's no questions on any of that, let's go round robin and do a report of any commission members.
Larry, I have just one update for you. I know you did send the email with the priorities to John Reiner. John Reiner did forward that on to Jeff Davis. He had the copy before, but we forwarded that one on to him as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So Michelle, we'll start on this end this time. Any updates to provide?
Other than attending the meeting last week that everybody attended, on this Groton 2035 meeting, all of my other stuff is in the agenda.
Okay. Bray?
All right. I attended along with Tom the Bluff Point Restoration meeting that was held over at Fort Trumbull. And it's a group from DEP that are reviewing conditions, environmental conditions at Bluff Point. And they were looking for public input as far as areas of concern or maybe directions that they might go in. It was probably some NERV funding that's involved with this, and this future planning put together proposals for climate change, increased flooding at high tide along the roadways and so forth. So it was a strategy type of meeting. Also went to the community conversation meeting on the 20th of November, and that was about housing, as well as attended the joint meeting with the commission and everyone else, also on the 25th. I'll pass it along.
I attended the Mystic River Alliance meeting as well. Larry just was able to attend the first hour, so he said it. Green infrastructure. There was a organizational meeting for the Earth Day Expo, and we discussed the need for plan for that better situate vendors, some new colors, all that stuff. So Dave was on that. And then also some additional vendors. And we also walked through the library to see all the space that's available. And then
All I did was go to the event last week. Fantastic. And I hope that there will be not upcoming.
There'll be lots more.
Olson here. I did a number of things. As mentioned, I attended the Bluff Point Restoration meeting led by NER, jointly with the DEP inputs. I was not able to make the 11:20 meeting. I did make the 11:25 meeting, but I also attended the Pekiwick 47th annual meeting on November 16th. I've got the program here. I'll pass this along so you can take a quick look at it. I sent a summary out that was forwarded to everybody as far as on what the major topics that I took away from it. It's interesting. Normally they do the 3 sessions. It was fairly interesting from the aspect they actually put normally they had 3 sessions and 3 tracks. This year they had a 4th track that's principally focused at Conservation Commission in regard to invasive plants, inventorying your open space as far as relative to natural resources, and then also in regard to vernal pools. So I attended all of the conservation track. What was interesting from a big picture from where we're heading here is a lot of people, and there's a few places such as like the Andover, Ridgefield, that are putting a lot of money into these inventories, these natural resource inventories, as justification for maintaining open space. I challenged them to some degree, saying, "Hey, and I showed them our open space conservation plan, which takes a look at all what they're doing in the natural resource categories, our flora and fauna and wildlife type aspect, but that they need to really be expanding to what we're doing to also go beyond that. Take a look at the value of the economics, take a look at the value of the historical, the recreation, and all this type of stuff. Put it all together to come up with where you want to be going." That's where my advocacy with these groups and stuff. So otherwise, just let you know on that. The other thing that the 2035 thing, I tried to approach some younger people to get to do the survey, and a lot of pushback, surprisingly. I started with my son, 40-year-old, okay, and they're just not interested in it. Why do I need to spend time doing this? Trying to explain it. I challenge you guys as how they're going to do more outreach. Because the thing I took away was they got 100 of these responses, but you were from everybody in this group here, pretty much. And-
Choir, the choir.
The choir, so, we had 45 people there at last Monday's meeting, and I say, so that was about half the survey results, so the outreach hasn't been, they were ready to close the survey down, and you haven't done anything as far as I'm concerned.
No, we actually have.
Okay,
It's actually gone out a lot, but that's one of the challenges. Anytime you do a survey, there's people that will take it and there's others that won't. So we've actually, we have reached out to church groups to get for them. So I think about 4 or 5 different churches. We got them in multi-unit housing, in some apartment complexes as well, and as well as at electric. People helping out there. But again, there's only we can't force feed down the surveys. We can just give them the postcards, like little teasers with that as well. And it is important, and we clearly recognize that, and most likely it's going to be extended due to that. So,
and the last thing I have is driving up and down I-95 the last couple of weeks, I've noticed all this tree removal along I-95 southbound from 86 to 90. I'm wondering if we, as the commission, I understand, I have the flyer from the state here saying, that we're doing this for safety of motorists, yada, yada, yada. But should we be shaming the state that says, hey, you're cutting down all these trees, reducing the carbon sequestration possibilities for the town of Groton? What are you doing to compensate us for? Are you planting trees someplace else? Are you trending in Groton? Should we, as a conservation commission, take up something to go forward and either a letter to the state and shame them into doing something to replace these, at least in the areas that they've taken in Groton? I think that's something that we should consider here as part of our tree advocacy here as we go forward. Thank you. Larry, it's yours.
I put myself on mute so you wouldn't hear me sneezing. A couple point. It is hard to hear from the I guess whether it's the microphone placement, etc. But two points that I heard. One is, Dave, we've got in our website, we've kind of got relationships with I think about 10 community organizations. Have you sent out a invite, if you will, to those organizations to propagate it to their members?
I will check on that, but I know that was part of the conversation. I know several of those groups have actually been interviewed, and that was one of the things too. I think there was an ask with that as well as an interview that we have a survey. It'd be really great to do out that. We can push more. I'm not sure it'll, change our demographics, what we're looking for. But I can make note of that.
Okay. And the other thing on the suggestion that Tom made, I think, when we get to the tree advisory board section of the agenda, we can have that discussion. All right, thank you. Moving on to old business. Open space inventory. I don't know of any updates. Tom, are there any?
Take no action.
Okay. Open space planning. I think there's a handout that Tom did on the Downs Patterson 490 property, that perhaps this is the right place to have that discussion.
Okay. I noticed from watching the discussions and agendas here for the Planning and Zoning Commission that there was an agenda item where they reviewed and inputs from the principals at T-Corps, attorneys, Mr. Sweeney, saying that he's interested in development of the Downs Patterson property beyond what there was originally discussed was the northern side data center. We had a north data center and a south data center. This is to expand use of that parcel, or those parcels. I think there's about 5 parcels involved. One of the things that there is a lot of natural diversity database impact in that area that I don't think was really addressed. So I put this in more of a watch item, that because I also approached Groton Open Space Association as the local stewards for the Hamlet Hill wildlife management area. To notify them also of this, to go to DEP, if they're interested in cutting some kind of deals or whatever. They're gonna go into development, because a lot of this property, just by the nature of the ledge and everything, is not developable, but there's also a lot of potential impact to the wetlands area and all the streams that come out of that area. And also being in the direct watershed to literally across the street to Groton Utilities area. So nothing has been proposed. I know that GOSA did contact Mr. Sweeney and got some additional information. I don't know all the details. That meeting hasn't happened. Follow-up meeting for into that yet. But I just wanted to make everybody aware of this, that there is a pressure for development. Now, this is an industrial zone, so I mean, and so it just is, you know, whether or not, and we haven't really talked about, we've talked about subdivision open space, but we've never talked about industrial open space. And that maybe we need to be kind of taking a look at how do we ensure, you know, look for opportunities to think outside the box relative to, you know, expanding the Candlewood Hill management area or GOSA and trying to take a portion of the property as far as for the stuff that's not going to be used and identification of what's along the Route 117 corridor, where there is some, you know, there is some flat land in there and that type of stuff, which was potentially developable, and we need to be having that balance. So it just is for our consideration and have a watch item as this develops further.
All right. Hey, Dave, in the grand scheme of things, what would be a timeline on this? I mean, it's a little early for us to take any position because there's nothing specific being proposed yet. Is that correct?
That's correct. And at this point, it was just the initial preliminary discussion with the Planning and Zoning Commission about whether or not this is something that they would entertain. So, you know, and really the next step is if they're going to go through with this, then they would basically apply for a zoning text amendment change if and when it happens, you know. But that's, like I said, it was just preliminary. There's nothing on the table. It's just a discussion. We know the fact that, and Larry, you already said it too, just in terms of from the community conversations and recognizing that we only have 7% of our land is basically zoned for multi-unit housing, and it's been discussed in the past that maybe there's an opportunity there. But again, no projects, no proposals, no changes, no nothing, just a discussion.
All right. So let me make a proposal that says when this is calendared for the Planning and Zoning Commission, that we would provide, the Conservation Commission would provide an opinion on that they have to come in with a proposition to the P and Z. Does that fit with everyone's view of what we should do?
Well, my viewpoint is, should we be supporting discussions such as that with Mr. Sweeney through GOSA or the state in regard to taking a look at, you know, how do I go off and keep a portion of it open space and still do the development area, and ensuring, you know, as far as supporting, as he's thinking now that he's gone into, he didn't get any negative pushback from my interpretation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, but there was also a very little in regard to open space in that discussion. And so I don't know if we should be proactively supporting, taking a look at what GOSA is doing, or or making recommendations to the state that they talk to these guys and take a look at, is there an opportunity here for a potential subdivision or a split of these properties? Because the way that the parcels are set up are not set up relative to this parcel should be developed and this should be open space. Okay, it's not that way. You have to kind of wiggle things around differently because of the way the parcels are set up. The parcels are historical and had, before anybody even thought about use. And so I think maybe we need, or should we as a conservation commission be more proactive to some degree in regard to encouragement of this discussions in the conservation aspect, similar to the discussions that Mr. Sweeney had for the planning, the zoning regulations to be able to put multifamily type of stuff in this industrial zone. That's really what he's doing.
All right.
Mrs. Bishop, what would that look like? Like, what exactly would it like for us to be proactive?
I think that, encouragement to, we as a town, I don't think, we have no say, because there's not, it's not gonna come under subdivision regulation, so that we're never gonna see this thing technically, okay? But even Mr. Sweeney in his discussions noted that there's a lot of non-developable land that is just gonna sit there, okay? And if we wanna be protecting that land, it would be to the advantage of the state to expand the Candlewood Hill wildlife management into that area. And so having working with the state to purchase a portion of those portions of a parcel in advance as part of the advanced planning. And I don't think, that they're aware that this would be something, that as far as the landholder, that they should be making that consideration to taking a look at development, as they develop the overall plan for the multifamily and the industrial stuff, that they should also be considering subdivisioning to either the state working with GOSA.
Right, I understand all of that, that's what could happen, but what is it like for us to do something? What are the action you would recommend that we do this?
I'm saying I think what we should be doing is like either sending a memo to being proactive to send a memo in coordination with GOSA to the state to say that you should be, as they're developing these future plans, express interest in these sections that you'd be interested in expanding to. Because now we have this superior knowledge to some degree that the developer and the owner of the parcels is looking at to develop it, that there's an opportunity here to still expand and salvage and protect some of the land that he may not be interested in at a fairly reasonable price. And in using your funding that you have, because they use the recreational trails and wildlife management funds that they have to make that original purchase.
Quick question for Dave. Within the zoning regs for industrial property, when they build out, what the protections are for having open space in there, for protecting?
I would need to have the regs in front of me really to look at it a little bit more closely, but I mean, a couple of things I'm looking at that. So one of the property that they're actually talking about is within the water resource. So the protection that's going to be afforded to anything that happens there is higher than in other parts of the town that are not within that protection. Is there an opportunity for subdivisions? Yes. So I would not rule anything out right now. So if a subdivision comes in, say it's a multi-unit subdivision, where they put in, I don't know what to get, like, this is all speculative. We have no idea. It's really, there's no regulation changes, no nothing, but a subdivision could come in. And as part of that, it's either 10% open space or the in lieu of fee. And like you said, Attorney Sweeney they know that much of that property is undeveloped, like probably half of it. So there's probably a good chance that there'll be something done with that property in terms of conservation. But again, there's nothing there. There's no project yet. So I think it's one of those things is wait and see, you can be proactive on it, but also you may be getting way ahead of the horse in terms of if nothing ever happens, if they decide we're not going to change, we don't want to, like the model may change. So it's up to you how you want to do that. But I think that at this point, there's nothing on the table. There's been no zone, text amendment changes to the zoning. There's no proposal, there's nothing. It was just looking at the challenge that we have within the town for housing, and other opportunities, and looking outside the norm. With the 7% that's zoned for multi-unit, not a lot. And looking at, is there an opportunity in these other spaces there? And there's some challenges there too. I mean, part of that too, in terms of infrastructure, and whether or not, sewer does go to Marriott, I think, but not beyond that. So there's some other big infrastructure challenges, as well as water resource protection district and everything. So really, it's however you guys want to handle it. But like I said, this is all, it was super preliminary, and clearly the paper jumped on it because it's an opportunity to discuss this. But
All right, so we could be proactive or we can be reactive. The reactive is pretty straightforward. We wait. Proactive would be, we want to reach out to, and you can't see me, Sweeney in quotes, and offer advice, input, and or historic knowledge of what's possible, in terms of what we're thinking, but more of an invite rather than a position. In other words, offer a discussion versus providing an opinion at this point. Is there any appetite for the commission to do that?
I agree with you.
Have a discussion.
And I know Attorney Sweeney is always open to that. So I think that that's probably the best route then to go, potentially go to the state where nothing is not there yet. It's a little, like I said, you can do it, but again, like it'd probably be better to talk to property owner or the attorney who's representing it.
That was my thought. It is, okay, so I would entertain a motion to reach out to the property owner, the developer, if you will, for a discussion on the use of that property with obviously the focus and a perspective from open space. Is there a motion or not?
Yeah, I'll move that we maybe invite them to a meeting with us, one of our meetings, and have that be part of the agenda.
Well, I guess there's two, either at a full meeting, which is public, or a subcommittee meeting, which is not. So consider
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That's my motion is to talk to the developer, whatever, attorney, and invite them to talk to us either with a subcommittee or in an open forum. For a second.
I'll second.
All right, well, I'd like a little clarity on the motion because those are two totally different meetings. One is
But we're giving them the option is to tell them, we'd like to talk to them about the potential for open space on their property. And we are offering either to have a closed meeting with the subcommittee or just attend the full open meeting and have the full. permission.
okay. All right, sometimes it's hard for me to hear this, so it's an option for full or subcommittee.
His preference, or he could say no to all of the above.
No, that's fine. Okay, so I was gonna try before or after. All right, any discussion on that motion? We've been seconded. All in favor?
I,
Okay. So
Larry,
that's unanimous. Okay, I'll go aye.
I want to make sure.
Now, my secondary question is, who would volunteer to be a subcommittee? I'd hate to volunteer to do something and then not be able to carry it off.
I'll be great. I'll be one member.
Tom,
If I'm available, yeah. See,
Ann,
Oh, so then, right.
and Bray?
you got something.
There's just up here.
Okay.
I'm a form.
Making it.
All right, excuse me. All right, so given that, then I'll prepare a memo for Dave's review to put a request out to them. And you can make sure I'm legally correct in terms of how I do that, Dave, okay? Okay. All right. Let's see. Next on the agenda. Oh, Groton 2035. Well, I think the way I'd like to do this is first of all is to identify that this was the first ever in the history of the town of Groton to have a tri-commission meeting. Ta-da! So that's something, I guess. Secondly is since we broke up into different teams, blue, red, yellow, I guess teams, is that I'd like to go around giving a brief anything that came out of those sub meetings that you would like to highlight. I think one of the things that piqued my interest was that there was in our session was that there was a session on a $1.5 billion sub-base infrastructure and development projects going on that there was kind of like, is there something there that would impact us or could benefit us? I mean, that kind of piqued my interest and came up that I was unaware of. Um, uh, Giselle, you were in the session with me. Would you like to add anything?
It's, for me, what piqued my interest is like the outreach. I know like you're having different, I'm trying to think of ideas of how to help. That's, I feel like, for me,
And I think, you know, on that note, I mean, even similar to Tom's piece about his son, not wanting to fill it out. So part of it's, you know, like, we need all of you, you know, as representatives of the town as part of this commission, you know, knowing what the demographic is so far for the surveys, you do know other people there, and it really is telling the story about why we need their input. Is the fact is that, you know, are they looking for housing? Would they ever be able to afford housing here? Are they trying to get a job here? They have a job here, but they can't live here because it's too expensive. So I think that any contacts that you have to get that input, I think is really important. Right, you contacted Project Oceanology. You know, like there might be some educators there that would be great to fill that out. So anyone that you know that can get that out, it's we can do. We're doing a lot, but obviously we're, you know, surveys are tough. You know, surveys are really tough in terms of getting people to take their time. So, you know, I just ask that if you think of people or groups, or, you know, you belong to another group or something like that, you know, it would be helpful to just get that. But yeah, anything you can do.
In all ages.
All ages,
High
yeah.
school teachers.
Yeah, I mean, I did, yeah, high schools, teachers, I mean, we're real, I mean, you saw the numbers, and they're very much skewed towards, you know, an older population, and that's fine. But really, as we've said since from the beginning, it's really, really important that this really reflects the entire community. And that's why we're doing stuff like these joint communities. We're doing the kickoff in Sutton Park, you know, like, and trying to reach out to other avenues, other locations. The same thing we're doing with community conversations. We are not meeting here. You know, we don't want to meet here. We really don't, because we have to get away from this. And we still hear that it's not conducive to certain people who work nights, you know, and we get that. And that is why, like, all of our events now have food. So that, you know, like, it's at least something that we can do to get people, the one thing for them not to also have to think. And also highlights great local restaurant. You know, like, so there's stuff like that that we're trying to do. In like anything, you try. Sometimes it works, sometimes it fails. You try again, you know, and you figure out what works. But again, like, it's really, really important for this not just to recreate the 2016 VOC. We want something that really is a living document, that really is aspirational, that really says, this is, in 2035, this is what I hope the community is, you know, and we need everyone's input. And the hard thing is, like, the hard thing, so, is getting renters, getting young people, so we did a program, now 3 or 4 weeks ago with in the high school group, you know, and just had a conversation about this and saying, you know, like, most of them were juniors and seniors. Okay, you're gonna graduate. You may go and work for EB, or you may go to school, or you may want to come back here. And what would help that decision going forward, you know, and what are the challenges? Because we really need those different perspectives.
As far as for the red group and myself, a lot of folks weren't aware of the open space conservation plan in our group. We did go through it in kind of a high overview. We did confirm that through Deb that it actually had been already passed to the contractor. But I think the contractor rep we had at the table wasn't aware of it. So,
It's easy to
he's a
just-
new guy, relatively speaking. But,
You got the newer, you know, consultant.
I think we only had one person from economic development, but he was the chair. And he's got a lot of ideas and stuff, but feels very frustrated. That's how I took the takeaway I had, that economic development is not really pushing an agenda, or they feel that they're just spinning their wheels to a large extent, which is kind of sad because they're one of the prime drivers in putting stuff into this plan. And I was kind of disappointed regarding the frustration that he's experiencing.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. I think that clear vision as it develops, you know, what it is for that commission. I also thought that the planning folks were also incredibly vocal. That there, and I don't know the details of were discussed. A lot of frustration. And John chimed in and said, I want to talk to you for another hour.
Right. I think it's, and I don't know if any of you are on the forum, the community, the Facebook forum. It's, you know, and John or Jeff said it too. I mean, one of the big challenges for this town is 82% of our workforce are commuters. So if you all have all heard, oh, why don't we have a Trader Joe's here? They're never going to come here based upon our basically our commuter rate, are those who live here. We're not set up for that. And part of it is, you know, heard from several commuters that it's really frustrating because there's nothing here, you know, so it totally is, you know, and so yeah, so Triton Square is being built, and that's 300 plus units and stuff, and that will help a little bit, you know, but it's challenging, and I think it's not just the fact that that's why our community conversations about housing have been so enlightening for a lot of people, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about housing and different terms that are used and what it really means, and the challenges that go along with it. And that's why I think there's been a lot of challenges and frustration from both EDC and also from planning and zoning, because the applications we're getting are geared towards a commuter community. And so that's why you get car washes. That's why you get oil changes. You don't get the staple stores that are here for people who live here. And that's really frustrating for a lot of people. And unfortunately, a lot of people are chiming in on forum, but really where we need them is to come to these meetings and express that to the town council and be a part of this whole Groton 2035 to really kind of change the mindset of from an economic side of things. If I own a business, what kind of business do I want to open? It's 82% commuters is a huge number. I'm a commuter, you know, so
It's your fault.
it's not my fault, but I mean, like, it's a big challenge. It really is.
So when are you moving in?
Since they built this house.
Or you mentioned this form, I don't know what form you're talking about, yeah, so I don't really do this. Stuff, but does the contractor that's doing this 2035 plan, does he have a site, and does he get that type of influencing? Networking?
Not to the same degree, and that's why and we are getting some comments around that through the survey, but not a huge amount, and none of us can. We have a lot of other big projects and we can't just look at social media, but I do know that we've heard it in like the community conversations about people say, well, I saw this on the forum, and that's why I'm here, or I saw this in the forum, and people would say we can't come because of the timing, and so we're trying to change things up a bit and change the location and make it more convenient, but there's a large local part of the community that, and I shouldn't just say here, it's like this everywhere, that use social media as a way to, express their concerns, frustrations, whatever you want,
Event.
it is, and it doesn't, that oftentimes the people, like counselors, yes, they might be on that, sometimes they see it, but really, that's why it's really important to come in front of the council. That's actually why even some of our community conversations that we're doing, we're gearing it towards civic engagement. Because I think a lot of people don't know how to get involved. They think that, just because I put it on Facebook, then someone will read it and then it's good to go. But, you could have 280 comments on one thing. We're going to read through them all. Most people aren't. They're not going to spend their time doing that, so it's, we're really trying, those are the kind of voices that those are the kind of voices that the community needs in terms of where they really want Groton to be in 10 years' time.
All right.
I'll start the conversation for her, with Brady and Kristen, obviously not here. My biggest takeaway was the disconnect between our commission and the planning and zoning. We only had one economic development guy, and that's a whole other issue, but and I brought up the names, the Groton 2035 itself needs to be more interconnected, not here's the conservation section and here's the play section. However, and part of the issue is when I said something about we should have more meetings like this, maybe have liaisons, and the chair of the planning zone said, well, anybody's welcome to our meetings. It's like, no, we need a liaison. He talks about, well, you can come to our meetings. He missed the point that his commission people need to learn about what we're doing, not just us paying attention to what they're doing. And Larry, your whole economic open land thing, they did, they sort of, people were interested, but we need to take that the next step. Those guys need to be more connected to what we're doing, the tools that we've developed, what it means to be part of what we have. So I don't know what the answer to that is. There were certainly some members of that commission that were interested in the fact that we need sustainability throughout the whole thing, and the development aspect needs to have sustainability associated with it. But I think it's bigger than that. And I think they need to understand what we're doing, and right now they don't.
And I do think that one of the messages that came out of that is how important it is to have these small groups. Yes, tomorrow's going to be committee in the chairs. Okay, that's good. And, we have some stuff there, but I think that the kind of cross-pollination between the different commissions, in whatever form that is, maybe it's a once a year, twice a year, something like that. And the nice thing is that here we have Groton 2035. It's a perfect opportunity to it.
Exactly.
But
yeah,
that's now, and how do you keep going?
Well, part of the planning needs to be how to have these commissions more interactive. And the thing about the chairs is that that chair, he's not going to take information about conservation back to his committee. He's just not. He just, my opinion, my observation is that that's not his concern. And so his committee members might be, I'm not going to Sue Sutherland knows all this stuff. But getting just the chair talking to Larry is not going to solve the problem. We got to have something that involves more of the members.
Just want to add, from sitting on the end of the whole group, I was just not really in the thick of the conversation. conversations because it became P and Z sort of are a regulatory, and they have to take things as they come along and work with it from that. The Economic Development Commission and Conservation Commission are advisory. So we have different worlds. And I felt that there was the little bit of a wall that was there because of that. In that we haven't really had an open conversation like this with all three of these commissions. So it was interesting. One of the themes was housing, future housing, and where do we want to go in the future? Looking at changing some of the regs about places that don't allow multifamily, opening that up, or do you always have to have 2 acre zoning or something smaller? And found that so that was a theme sort of running around in our discussions. In the Economic Commission, I echo what other people have said, they seem very frustrated. And they're not, the members that were sitting at our table didn't really feel a good handle on what their direction ought to be.
He was
And-
also, there was one there and he was a newer member too, so that,
Yes.
that's the other challenge.
But it's because when there's a very distinct disconnect from the Economic Development Commission and who comes to the Planning Commission, the Planning Department with a proposal, I would like to do this in the community, I'd like to open up this business or something like that. And it seems like that the Economic Development Commission is reactive. They're not sort of in the front end of the flow of information, but more of catch up. But I don't know if that's the nature of the commission, or is it just what's happened? Because it's one of those things that if you're talking about future housing, you're talking about moving ahead with certain sites within town that might be considered for changing maybe some of the zoning regs on it. They didn't have any. So it was an interesting discussion by all, and you have a better idea of where they're coming from, as well as PNC.
Because really where the rubber meets the road is that's where the zoning regs are, and that's where the changes are. So even when there was a discussion months ago with the council about housing, it went directly to PNC. They're the ones that would look at potential for what's allowed in certain zones. So that's normally how they go. And because both those groups are advisory versus really more regulatory than state statute, from timing, approvals, all that.
Well, I would just like to have one follow-up comment is that from the Kakiwik presentations I went to, I noted that Andover, Connecticut, they made a presentation in regard to how they're doing their index of natural resource index. And in a comment there, they said one of the things that the reason they're doing this is because their commission is in control of the POCD, as opposed to be
Oh,
planning.
interesting.
As opposed to planning and zoning, like it's mandated here at Groton. I just tossed that out as a follow-up comment that I forgot to mention earlier. But here, as in what your town wants. Admittedly, Andover's only got 3,000 people. It's 70% forested and very limited industrial areas. But it's just nature of where they are.
All right. Thank you for that. So I think we've got as Dave pointed out, we have the cross commission meeting tomorrow night. So I think I can throw out some of these items there and see what the next step would be to get some little cross commission pollination and use the 2035 project to drive that. All right, well, thank you all for attending that session. The next item on the agenda is budget support. Anything breaking on the budget front, Dave?
The breaking. So we just literally just started it, at least from the departmental side. I know you said last month that you were you going to reach out to Mark to see where it was? Mark or John Berg or I forget what you said. But yeah, we're just starting it right
Excuse me. Well, I think the point was to try and get in earlier with Mark, but excuse, oh man. So it's somewhere around probably in December. So I think let me put a little question mark with Parks and Rec budget.
Dave, has the town manager put any kind of like a timeline out as far as when he was looking for departmental inputs?
If anything, John Ryder would know.
You're
we're
not
not-
at the working bee level, you don't know anything.
That's not handle it. Directional.
Yep, still a little early, but I'd
It
rather
is.
try and be ahead of it rather than behind it. All right, so we'll continue to track that. 6.5 is vacant land review. There still has not been another TOC meeting. Dave, any outlook on whether that's ever gonna come back up again?
I have not heard anything. The
Uh,
only update I've heard is that the RFPs for Groton Heights were due today.
The other one
Okay.
did.
Yeah, Pleasant Valley got issued and
Wasn't in this pack.
Yeah, last week.
they got
all right, so not a lot of action there. Michelle, Connecticut College Project.
So I sent Jen the list of projects. I never got anything from you, Giselle, so I sent it without the additional project, although I'm wondering if there might be a way to include best management practices in everything. So I need to see what you're thinking about in terms of what that means, because I don't really know, like, I don't have a view of what exactly you're talking about, but I mean, I know what best management practices are, I just don't know how to do a project for students. So, and I don't think we don't talk about it now, but that's something that we can talk about.
Did I ever get it? I sent an email, please, to the friends.
Oh, you did?
But this was like a week ago. So that's why I was late and I apologize because of dealing with family stuff going on right
Well,
now.
I need to see if I got it,
Okay.
but, so we can talk about that. So, we'll be meeting, and I'm suspecting that the subcommittee this year might be meeting in itself. Since, the big, the Earth Day is the big day, it's just be good for you to get an idea of how this all works.
I would love that.
And we, they're really excited, Jen's really excited about the Go Run, that get outdoor stuff. So we may end up trying to create more of those, anyway, so based on, because they selected all the students, they know who the people are, and so she knows what their interests are, and she thinks that there's gonna be a lot of she's really happy. So sometime, probably early February is when we'll meet with them, and I'll find out from Jen when she wants to do, because what happens is she gives it to the students and a few days before that meeting, and then we show up and give them, more details and ask questions, and then have them choose their projects at theirs. So I will know better at January's meeting, what to expect for timing. But you are interested in doing this? Yeah. So that's our subcommittee for that project. Any other questions or comments about that project? Okay. So I'm up for open space stewardship as well, and so here's the dilemma. I finally got the marked up manual from Dave, but as I'm going through it, I realized all of Tabitha's comments were before the meeting you guys had with her, and I wasn't at the meeting. So I can't address the comments because I don't know which ones are still in effect and which ones aren't. So we need to come up with
She, no, I mean, basically, all those comments were, she corrected any comments that came out of the meeting with Tom, Larry, and myself, and Mark and Tabitha. She went through her comments, and any comments that were either addressed, she said she took out.
So the version you sent me was after the meeting?
Yeah, that was the latest version.
Because there was still stuff like trail stewards, and you said you corrected her understanding that our stewards were trail stewards, they were stewardship, trail volunteers, like they weren't just about trails.
I'm not aware that she committed to providing, or at the meeting, we didn't even have that electronic.
Oh,
She kind
okay.
of went, yeah, she went through it herself,
Yes,
and then we said,
then she forwarded like the next day or whatever. And so it's very confusing in regard to.
Okay, well, starting to look through her comments, I was confused. So what I will do, I thought it'd be just really quick, okay, accept the comments or whatever, it's like, no, this is not that simple. So I'm gonna go through it, I will add my comments to stuff that I don't understand or I'm not sure, do we really wanna make this change, or is this, just because it's a good change doesn't mean we wanna do like having all the contact information on the first page? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that what I'm suggesting is consistent with what you understand from talking to her. So I will do my best to go through it. I will send my commented version to my subcommittee co-members, and we'll see if we can get something cleaned up.
For prior to our January meeting.
Gonna try.
Okay. All right.
I started looking at the thing and I was like, I just went right into the ditch. It's like, how the heck am I ever gonna figure this out? So I knew it wasn't gonna be, I figured it was gonna be a short thing. It wasn't a short thing. But I will go through it and try to add my comments and then we can go from
All
there.
right. Okay. 6.8 outreach. Well, we've talked about outreach more on the with Dave and the survey thing. Any other outreach topics? All right. And 6.9 tree advisory board. So we're kind of nudging Giselle into that slot. There was a Yale tree management in the agenda, and there was a meeting of the Connecticut Advocate for Trees. So Giselle or Tom, you want to take a whack at that?
The meeting at Kakiwik, when you go in there, they have like 18 or 20 tables set up for different organizations, legislative people, a couple of conservation commissions, that things. And one of the new ones that was there was this Connecticut Tree Advocacy Group, and I talked to them and I got their card, and they explained that they're out of I think it's Hamden area, and that they're advocating at the state level for legislation relative to supporting trees. And I asked them, have you been dealing with Representative Baumgartner at all? Because he's on the environmental committees on the House side. They said, who's he? So I explained a lot about Andre and his support for our commission and trees and everything, his activities and stuff. And I gave them, pointed them to how to get a hold of him, and that they should be advocating with him as a good supporter for them. That's my contribution here regarding what this group is. It's a grassroots group that they just started up in this past year. Similar to a lot of the stuff, it kind of reflected what's in the Groton Conservation Advocates, but at a state level for trees. Okay? And so that's what I had on my part. I had nothing to do with putting that.
Where did that come from? Is that you, Larry? Did you put that in there?
yeah, Larry, you forwarded that to me.
Yeah. And the thought was that they're kind of early into it. But given the discussion we had earlier about the trees being cut down on Route 95, which goes through multiple towns, maybe the avenue back, because it was suggested to go back to the state, is perhaps reach out to this group and indicate that they should coordinate multiple town inputs and we'd be supportive of our town's input for something on that scheme. So, Giselle, if that's of interest, is that you could pursue and see if they would pick up that mantle and we could support them with a letter of support, if you will.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Very good. Anything else on the tree front? No.
Well, it kind of, the only other thing that's timeliness is the budget for Parks and Rec. I don't know if we should be more proactive, like in the Mark or Tabitha in regard to what they're putting in for the budget on the trees relative to, because we had the whole, yeah, they should be putting a CIP together, just kind of follow up and questioning, prodding them along a little bit. Because this would be a new introduction. Is there anything, if this is going to be new CIP in there, those are always hard to start. We're doing any kind of, I'm not saying lobbying the town council, making sure that, if there's any support that we can provide to them.
Well, we offered once. I'll go back and offer again.
Well, I don't, Mark's, we kind of got I don't know if we're on the outs with him because of our recommendations as the tree advisory board and our last memo to him saying that from your, you spent all this money for this big inventory and stuff, and there was recommendations there, but we still support, the advocacy for the CIP to be put in place for planting trees and expanding the inventory.
All right. Well, I mean, it's got to separate politics of it from the getting the CIP in place, regardless of who oversees it. All right. Any new business? All right. Report of staff.
I have nothing additional to add.
Nothing additional. Michelle.
Will be adjourned.
All right. If there's no objection, then we will adjourn the meeting. And
Feel
see you
Yeah,
next.
Larry,
What's that?
hope you feel better.
No, I'm
We'll
still
see you. That's great. Everyone have a nice holiday, and we'll see you January 6th.
see you next year, I guess.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Good.